Okay, so we're working on an elderberry processing plant. So these are the things we'll be going over in our presentation. We have a summary, a list of constraints, a process flow chart, a literature review, project uniqueness, standards and regulations, similar solutions, vendors, solutions, and our conclusion. So starting off, in summary, we've been tasked with designing a elderberry processing facility in Guatemala. The facility will produce concentrate, specifically 80 to 1.25 reduction by weight. And the concentrate will be used in finished products such as syrups or vitamins. And we've also been tasked with finding a way of marketing our byproducts through either a powder fiber supplement or animal feed. We're still trying to figure out what to do with the byproducts. So some of the constraints that we're having to work through, the electricity available on site is both expensive and is only single phase. So any of the equipment that we're using will need to be electrically efficient, and we'll be constrained by the size of the equipment that we can use because only single phase is available. Our client specifically asked that we try and use wood for any heating processes. We spoke with the engineering team, and they mentioned some pretty precise temperature needed to process elderberries. So I don't know if we're going to be able to use wood or not. We're working on that. Another constraint we're having to work with is the physical properties of elderberries. The stems and the leaves and unripe berries are toxic. And once you harvest the berries, they have a very short shelf life. So that they either need to be processed almost immediately or frozen. Information concerning processing elderberries is limited, especially on the industrial scale. Most of the things that we've been able to find are just small, like home growers doing their own manual picking and cleaning, things like that. Our final constraint is the budget. We don't have an exact budget, so the importance of making our system scalable and modular is even more important so that we can scale our operation to whatever budget. So I think Carly's going to talk about our process flow chart.
Howdy, my name is Carly, and like Austin said, I'll be going over the process flow chart. When we first met the client, we determined that the specific product we'll be making is a concentrate. This concentrate would be further developed into some sort of gummy or other product to be taken as an immune supplement or dietary supplement. But for the purposes of our project, we're just focusing on the concentrate. So here we're assuming that the elderberries have already been harvested and delivered to the facility. The client informed us to expect anywhere from 100 pounds to 1,000 pounds daily. So since that's a bit of a range, we're leaving the quantity out for now. When they come into the system, they'll go through a wash. This could be a water bath or conveyor system. Like Austin mentioned, there are budget constraints and electricity constraints. So we're thinking a lot about what will be mechanical, what will be manual to go along with that. So after they're washed, they'll be frozen. And freezing the berries will aid in the stemming process. And so this would likely be a mechanical process. That will be discussed later. But shaking them mechanically will remove the stems so they can go into being made into a concentrate later. And from there, the unripe berries would need to be removed. And so it seems like a good way to do this would be to put them in a water bath and skim the unripe berries off the top, which would likely be done manually. And this is important because the unripe berries do not have the antioxidant benefits that the ripe ones do. So we want to work with the ripe ones, definitely. So from there, we'll create the actual concentrate by blending and filtering. This will leave us with two products, the juice and the bagasse, which is the byproduct. It's like a pulpy residue. And so the client would like the byproduct to be developed into something that can be marketed. This might be some sort of powder that has residual antioxidant benefits, but we'll be further researching that. And so the juice will be developed into a concentrate, and packaged to be delivered to be, further developed from there. So as far as our literature review in researching the topic, there's not a ton of information regarding the processing of elderberries specifically, especially not in Guatemala since there are no existing plants in the country. So our initial thought was that we could base the process off of a similar berry, such as a blueberry. However, one of the most helpful articles I found informed me that the stems and leaves of the elderberry plant can be toxic. So that's kind of an issue. To mitigate that risk, heat can be applied to get rid of the toxic substance, but when you apply heat, the antioxidant benefits are decreased. And so we're needing to find a balance between how much heat can be used without losing the antioxidant benefits, which is the whole purpose. So we're also looking into developing the concentrate. How much could it be boiled to remove the water, or would some sort of vacuuming system to remove the water be better? So Michelle will be going on for sure.
Okay, so obviously this project is pretty unique. Elderberries are a unique crop product that is very hard to find. In fact, we can't even get our hands on a raw elderberry in the United States. And that's why it's very hard for us to find operations also to research. There are very few large-scale operations, and the large-scale operations use more mechanical labor, while when we're researching the smaller-scale operations, they use more manual and mechanical labor. We'll be analyzing mechanical and manual. And then the juice concentrate that we are working with is very hard to find information on, but like Carly said, we'll be able to research other berries to kind of find similar processes and get ideas on that. Next slide. So then also there's many standards and regulations that need to be applied. And so a lot of the food processed in Guatemala is exported. So it's generally acceptable to hold facilities to US standards. And then they need to go through a registration process, which includes a sanitary license for operation. Then after that, the Central American Secretariat of Economic Integration was also formed, and they have produced regulations on licensing and registration, microbiological criteria, and labeling of food. And then also the occupational, but they're mostly regarding transportation of the product. Then also the occupational and safety health legislation was produced so that workers ensure a good quality of life. They're focused on the rules and regulations, preventing of accidents, and enforcing those rules, and implementation plans for safety. Also, the Ministry of Health governs food safety and health in Guatemala, and this can be found in Government Decree 9097 that they have published. Then next, I believe Zach is talking about similar solutions.
So like she said, my name is Zach. I'm going to be talking about similar solutions and possible vendors. For similar solutions, we looked at other types of berries, given our lack of ability to find specific information on other berries. So we focused on blueberries and acai berries, how those are processed, and the things that they have to go through. In general, they go through a cleaning process. They'll be brought in, rinsed of any contaminants that might appear from the field, dirt, fertilizer, things such as that. Rinse through water bath. Because of our power constraints and the location, one of the things that we're thinking about doing is using manual labor for certain parts, such as the water bath, because where our client is located, we're in Guatemala. Manual labor is a lot more easily accessible and cheaper than just installing an entire washing system. From there, the berries are generally frozen to help strengthen up the outsides for the destemming process. It also helps with when you don't want to use the berries immediately for processing. You can put the frozen berries into storage. It'll increase the shelf life. The destemming process is generally vigorously shaking the berries. There are machines for it, or you can do it with hand baskets. They have small holes at the bottom of the baskets that only the berries can pass through, and the leaves and stems will be collected and disposed of at a later time. After the de-stemming process comes the juicing process. There are a couple ways to do this. What we focused on was pressing because it's going to be more likely available. For pressing, you take what's called a cheesecloth, which is a finely meshed cloth that allows just the fluids to pass through. You'll have to skim the berry skins off of that. This is where we get into our byproducts called bagasse, a fibrous material produced from squeezing berries, which in essence is just the outer skins of the berries. As Austin stated earlier, we're not sure what we're going to do with bagasse at this point. Large chance it's going to be recycled for fuel in our process later on. Another option for juicing berries is liquefaction. You can add an enzyme concentrate to the berries that will break down the structure of the berries and turn them into a liquid that way. From the juicing, we have to remove the water from it. As it was stated earlier, elderberries have a problem with boiling, with raising the temperature, so we have to find a way to boil off the water without raising the temperature of the berry, diminishing the properties of the berries. What we've gathered working alongside the BAN team is potentially using a vacuum system. The vacuum will decrease the boiling temperature of the water, so the water will be able to boil off without increasing the temperature of the overall berries. This should help with getting rid of the water and not diminishing the health effects of the berries themselves. And then next slide. As possible vendor solutions, what we've looked at so far is the de-stemming machines. We've got A and B packaging and Terry elderberry destemmer. Two relatively modular and relatively cheap machines. They're small but efficient, and they fit our power requirements of single phase electricity. And Ross, you're going to cover the last one.
Yeah. So moving forward, we hope to get more information on specifically how we're going to be juicing the berries and our method of concentrating the fluid, so we know specifically what byproduct we have, and then from there we'll be able to come up with products that we can make with that byproduct. That's pretty much all I've got. Our next meeting is March 9th, 2021 at 9:45 a.m.
Okay, great. Austin, click the gallery view on the Zoom, folks, so we can see everybody now.
That one?
Yeah, that's great. Okay. Well, normally we go to the client for comments. Why don't we ask Dr. Moore for any questions or comments? Can you hear us, Dan?
Yes, I can. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
All right. So very interesting. This is really my first time getting all the way into it. I know you guys sent me a little brief summary of what's happening. So I have a couple questions, mainly the bagasse, okay? The current use, not mainly, I'm sorry. What is the current use for bagasse from elderberries? I don't know. I'm asking.
So we can dry it out and use it as animal feed. It can be used as fertilizer. One of the things our client was interested in looking into, since we have an electricity concern, not being able to get high-powered electricity, our client was looking into using more, I don't want to say fire-powered, but burning for fuel.
Yeah.
The facility where we're building it is going to be inside of a dense forest, pretty much. And he was already asking us to look into using wood for fuel for some of the processes. One of the things, if we dry out the bagasse, we can use that as fuel too. I believe the words cogeneration is what that is, where you take a byproduct and then use it to power the other processes. That specific, sorry, trying to think real quick. that specific method where you take the bagasse and use it to power the other parts of the process is very popular in sugarcane. They do that a lot in that industry.
Yeah, so that's I'm used to the sugar cane bagasse being used as energy source. So I'd say as you guys look into that, if there's no um like benefits from the composition of the bagasse, like high, fibers or sugars or proteins. I don't know if there would be there, but like if it's not like trying to weigh your options, what would be the best use for that? Because I know you mentioned using it as trying to find a use for it. And if it's not really going to be a good animal feed, you might as well turn it into energy.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, just something to check on. And you said there's a short shelf life for uh, the concentrate, I think, or the juice.
The berries themselves have a short shelf life.
Okay, so after they're harvested and start going through the process, how long is that shelf life? Like, and what properties tell you that it's not good anymore?
I think the longest, it said 1 to 2 days. And it said the berries spoil.
Okay. So then you really need to get it moving. Okay. Interesting. All right. Just wanted to know that. That's all I have. Those are the only questions I have. Great job. I'll keep that in mind too as you guys move forward, because that's 1 day of a very short shelf life.
Thank you, Dr. Moore. Appreciate you participating. Dr. Castell, over to you.
So we
Oh, I'm
did-
sorry.
oh,
You know what?
you're right,
Normally
the
we let
team.
the other team go. So team 5, make your comments and questions, please.
I had a question. So I know y'all talked about like the toxins and the stems and stuff like that. Does that affect the gas or no? I was just curious because when you're like repurposing it, if there's toxins in it, that could be bad. But I was just curious.
It seems as though the ripe berries, closer to
Step up into the camera. Thank you.
From what I understand, at least, it seems that the ripe berries themselves do not have the toxins, and so I think that the skins that the gas would be comprised of won't be an issue as far as that goes.
Okay, gotcha. So it's not the ripe ones; it's the ones that are spoiled that have the toxins. Then, right?
Yes, or the unripe ones.
Okay, I gotcha. Sorry, misunderstood that.
I got a question. Are these elderberries being grown on a farm, or how are they being grown?
From what I know, it'll be people farming it and then bringing it to the facility to be processed.
How big is that farm that they're growing on?
The demand is anywhere between 100 and 1,000 pounds a day or something like that.
Yeah, that's what the client had said to expect coming into the facility. It seems like in Guatemala there's a lot of crop production, but not for the processing.
Okay.
Okay, you got a couple more questions or comments?
I have a comment. I only saw 2 pictures in the slides.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's the one thing that I would say.
Yeah, I do have a same comments. So can you go back to the process flow charts? Yeah, this is one of the few pictures you have. And where did you get this flow chart? You get it from research or from the client?
So I made it on Microsoft Word. When we first had contact with the client, he wanted us to make the flow chart so we could agree on like the process to make the concentrate. So this isn't identical to the one that we sent him initially. When we met with the Bain team, theirs was a little bit more detailed, so I needed to do one to kind of have more detail than what we said.
I see. So I think my little criticism of this slide is that it's very asymmetric, and maybe there's some way to regenerate this flow chart to more symmetric. Yeah, and the other one is that there's one slide to explain a lot of process in one slide. And it sounds like, I mean, you're an expert in this whole process, but I'm not. And you're giving me a bunch of information in just one slide without any pictures. It sounds to me like you're just throwing some baking powder in the water, stir it up, and it becomes the fried rice. So I don't know what that is, but maybe some picture will help, like, the clients or potential audience to understand what you're trying to say.
Definitely.
Yeah. And that's all. That's my comments.
Okay, let's move along to Dr. Castillo.
This one of my favorite projects because it really shows you the impact that processing technology can have in a community. Unfortunately, you cannot go visit there, which would have been wonderful for the team, and you will be able to answer all these questions: where is it produced and how much? So it's a lot of ambiguity, but again, that's what is exciting. So this is one of my favorite projects this semester. I like your presentation, the quality. I was not too worried about the asymmetry. They are doing this job, right? To me, it was exciting to see that you develop your own flow chart. I think that really helps the audience understand a little bit what you're saying. But I think Jan makes a good point. It happens to me when I'm teaching. I know everything, and I think I'm telling you, but pictures. Just start with a picture of the elderberry. Nobody has seen them, right? Austin thinks they're not real, but they are, and they're supposed to be wonderful fruits with very good properties. That just having that concentrate in that facility, just can't imagine the impact on the community in terms of the added value to that. So to me, that's good. I would like to see more pictures through, and I think just to start, one map of Guatemala and where is that facility going to be. People don't know, right? I know what Guatemala is, but so it gives people a sense of where you're working on. For the next presentation, I would expect to see numbers on these flow charts.
Okay.
So temperatures, time, you're going to be working with the engineering team that will give you, so you're going to have a better sense. My question was, how do you remove the unripe berries? Do they float? Is it a density?
So the Bain team explained, from what I understand, if you put them in a water bath, the unripe ones should float.
So
and
it's
then
a density
somebody
difference.
could skim them off the top.
That's good. Overall, you're talking about that vacuum concentration, which I like the idea because you had a heating problem. Maybe Dr. Moore can help you find alternatives. I find it too expensive for the client, but you're gonna do the economic analysis, and that would really help the engineering team to figure that out. Is the vacuum concentration is the best. I have question mark on that, but it's exciting. I love that you did with the standards. You address all the main issues with a food product. Again, pictures. The literature review was good. You said what you're going to do, which I like. So I'm excited. I think it's a good starting point, and I'm looking forward to your next development on it. And to answer Dr. Moore's question, like our berries, the shelf life is very short. That's why it's frozen, and you should not worry too much about that. But yeah, it is a very short life. So these are my comments. Thank you. Good job.
Okay, I have a few comments. This is a good presentation. It was definitely demonstrated a lot of work that y'all have done in coordination with your client and the other team. I like the fact that you guys have already reached out and are working with your faculty advisor. You're communicating that you're doing a lot of the right things. It's good. The organization, your presentation was good. The slides were good. Yes, like the pictures. Really, I mean, I love the fact. I think it was Michelle said that, or maybe Carly said, we tried to get an elderberry, but you can't find an elderberry. And that's an interesting comment because it implies very strongly that you tried to actually study the product that you're working with. But are there any pictures of elderberries?
Yes.
Okay, I want to see a picture of an elderberry next time. Okay, I still don't know what this thing is. And if there are any elderberry products out there, that'd be good to discuss as well. But that's okay. You're not really supposed to educate us. You're supposed to give a progress report to your client. Let's see. Okay, let me go individually here. Austin, so 13 minutes on the presentation, really good. Very equally distributed among the four of you. Austin, you're talking in a conversational tone, pretty much reading the screen. Okay? So what you need to do when you present is you need to use a presentation voice, not a conversational voice like this.
Yes, sir.
I think I covered that in my class.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Okay, so I want you to apply what you have learned, and you'll see that when you do your self-critique. Okay, but yeah, you were looking at the screen here a lot, and that's tempting. The problem with the way we're doing this is normally you'd be looking at that computer screen on your right, but this is where you're presenting. So when you have to make a choice between the two, it's better to have maybe a piece of paper in front of you so your eye contact is going up this way. Okay. Still, though, it was a good project description. I love your constraints slide. It was very detailed. Yeah, I'm glad that Dr. Moore brought out the quantifiable versus Q versus Q. You said short shelf life. What is short? So just watch out when I tell you we're going to be pretty hard on that when you use qualifying terms. We want to see numbers. What does short mean? What does we did that all great. Okay, Carly, very nice presentation, presence. Your voice was good. You were directed toward us. Yeah, the process flow slide, you get a lot of credit for this. The only thing I would have done here is, I mean, I do have some questions. Like in one process is freezing it, so it seems to imply that it's frozen throughout the rest of the process. Somewhere in here, it thaws. So maybe discuss that a little bit more. What I would have probably done here is repeated this slide, and in all that black space you've got up there, I would have, for every step that you discuss, for example, wash, I would have some text in the black space to support what you're saying with regards to the wash. Then my next slide would talk about the freeze. What temperature, how quickly do you freeze them, how long do they stay frozen? The next slide would be remove stems by shaking, and you talk about how that happens. Okay, so you could you stayed a long time on this slide, and this is a very useful slide, but I think by repeating it with some text to emphasize each step, that would have helped us to understand it a little better. So all I can do is just offer that suggestion to improve that.
For sure.
Your literature review, yeah, not a lot of literature. I love the fact that you went and looked at similar processes, but I only saw one. So surely there are other berries that are being processed that would have informed your project here. Michelle, your voice was good. Your eye contact at first was toward the screen, and then you got away from the screen and oriented more toward us. So really good. You're going to see that when you do your self-critique. You improved during your 2 minutes of stage time up there. The standards and regulations, you were very thorough, but I wanted to see some specifics. It's not enough just to say, OSHA, applies here, and you said some things, but give some specifics about what specific application of go to that go down to about slide 10 or so, wherever her presentation on standards and regulations. Yeah. So I like what you did there for the second one. Maybe you could have done a little bit more on the others, but I'm really nitpicking here, okay? Because that's one of the best discussions of standard regulations I've seen. And then Zach, wow, your presence and your voice was outstanding. So everybody needs to perform at Zach's level there. Really good. You've obviously had some practice at this, perhaps in front of, I don't know, underclassmen, you know, so you're doing good. Similar solutions. You used a bullet that said we're looking for other fruit with similar physical properties. And then it occurred to me, so what are some of the physical properties of an elderberry? How big are these things? Are they like blueberries? Are they like blackberries? I think you could have probably given some information on, you know, elderberries are typically an average diameter of this, an average mass of this, that kind of stuff. You can tell us something about the elderberries, and that would then, because you have to know that in order to look for other berries of physical properties. So if you research that and you found it, tell us what it is. Anyway, good presentation. I have a question for Michelle. You didn't get to answer a question, so let me ask you about the division of labor between you and the Bain team. How's that? Have y'all kind of talked about they're going to be doing this, y'all going to be doing that?
Yeah, so we've definitely talked with them about how we're more of like the operations side and they're more of the engineering. And so like we'll be able to, they're helping us currently, but we'll be able to help more when it comes to economic analysis. We're kind of both on the same page on that.
Okay. Are you having any static like, hey, we've got our information, we're not going to share it with you guys?
Not really. I think we're pretty open on that.
Yeah, I think the only thing is they've had a lot more time, and so we don't want to feel like, oh, like send us all the information you have because we just started. So that's kind of.
We'll probably need to work on that next year to get our two teams in sync a little earlier and better. Okay. All right. Good job. We're about out of time. Any other comments, Dr. Moore?
And here, all good. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you for joining us today, and
Thank you.
I guess we'll sign off.